Okay, okay.
You gotta be
That's
cool.
good.
Be cool. Be cool.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good. We're good.
Okay.
Good, fam.
I
Good.
think.
Let me check out this setup.
All right.
Also, let me see.
Oh yeah.
And
Let me.
then this setup.
All
How
right.
do I read? Okay,
Also,
so
let
I
me
retweet with
see.
comment. Oh, fam base.
So I'm just making sure the sound is good. Last time I think the sound was wrong. All right, dude. I haven't streamed in so long. I don't know if people are gonna be
Yeah,
here.
I've been pretty away due to my like 1 month of being sick. So no coming
Yeah,
back.
dude. I was at Gamescom, got sick, like violently ill. Okay, so
Oh, while you were there?
I had an ear infection going into Gamescom. So already,
Ooh,
like, long ass flight going to Germany from Boston with an ear infection. That actually, something weird
that's not
happened.
good.
No, I don't know what happened. Like, so it wasn't an infection. I think it was a sinus thing. But the second
Yeah,
I got up on the plane, it went away. The plane
that's
cured
crazy.
it. I know. And the Gamescom was great, but I got some kind of flu while I was there. And then I was sick for those precious 3 days between Gamescom and PAX. So I flew from Germany to Boston, was like delirious and asleep most of the day for 3 days, and then flew right to PAX, where I was patient zero. And it was just like, I was hacking on the fucking people at Microsoft. It was not a good conference. I think there was a lot of things that could have gone better. The biggest one would be, you know, health. Like being in good
Yeah.
health would have been nice.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know if you noticed, but I was coughing a lot during PAX. That was like it was like a combination of I think it was like a so I had like a laryngitis or some shit like I got sick about a month ago for 2 weeks, and then it went away. But then I realized that I wasn't getting 100%, and then it just kind of stuck with me, and I was like, what the hell's going on? And I went to the little minor med thing, and they were like, here's antibiotics, and we need to shoot you with a needle in the butt cheek. And I was like, okay, and like immediately felt better getting a shot. But then like afterwards, it was like, okay, so I'm gonna take these, and then I didn't get better. Like at the end, I was still sick, and it was like the day before PAX, and I don't know. It was awful, but like they gave me some new ones, and I'm feeling much better now. But damn, like I've never been sick for over a month before,
I've never heard of an
and
adult getting shot in the butt cheek. Like, there's never, that makes sense for infants where there's, low vein opportunities, but I feel like there's faster ways to get things in your bloodstream as an adult.
the lady looked at me and she was like, I'm gonna need to shoot you in the butt cheek. I was
You might,
like, okay, point where? I was like, this is the thing. This is
that's
the thing
a,
that's gonna happen then, I guess.
dude, if some doctor said that to me, I'd be like, I want to see your medical license. I want to know what, I mean, I want to trust you, but that is an unusual request, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's normal. Maybe that's normal.
No, I mean it
I'm not a
wasn't like I had
doctor.
to like fully commit like the whole cheek. It was just like the top cheek, and she put like a little band-aid over it afterwards. It was good. No, we were
Why
fine,
the?
and
There's no
uh
major artery in the butt, though. Like
no,
what?
but like it worked. I mean, it was like basically a steroid shot or something like that, just to get me on my feet. And I felt like 100% after that. Like literally within 15 minutes, I was like, I could run a marathon. Uh, but then after
Uh,
that, I kind of crashed a little bit. But
so you were
going
on?
to
Are you telling us you were on drugs during PAX? Is that the?
No, I cut them out before going to PAX because I wasn't sure because they switched me to a new antibiotics. They switched me to a new one just before going, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna make me sleepy or like weirdly gassy or some stupid thing. And who wants to be at your booth like falling asleep or like farting on everybody that comes up to your booth?
I don't think bad farts are the standard side effect of antibiotics. But I mean, I guess I don't know. It's
Well, it didn't
plausible.
happen, so thank
Oh.
you.
You
But yeah,
shouldn't.
no.
In all seriousness, that's actually very dangerous. You shouldn't stop taking antibiotics.
Well, it was between. It was like the one that they gave me originally didn't work, and then it was like, okay, you're switching to a brand new one, and I hadn't started it yet,
Got
so
it. Okay.
it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna relax on that for just a day or two. And the first day was pretty bad, but like essentially what happened was, um, I ended up just drinking a whole lot of water and like hot teas the entire time.
Yeah.
But that worked out pretty good. Let me send out another tweet
Yeah,
from
let's tweet
my
that we're doing this.
Proteus.
Is anyone in the chat? Do we sound okay? Last time I had Mojica way too quiet. My hack
And I'm
a
a pretty
lung.
loud person.
Yeah, but you know, with the power of the internet, we can just tune you down.
Yeah, for some reason this microphone, if it's set to 100%, I destroy worlds. But if I set it to 75% of my voice power, it's usually pretty good.
It's a good mic. I definitely
Thank
got
you.
like a pop filter from Amazon for $5 and a the cheapest thing I could get at Target for a mic. No one's really complained. My big thing is that it's on the desk, so people hear shit whenever I type. Hey,
Okay. Yeah,
Sapphire.
I mean, I was gonna get a new one because like I had the headphone. I was doing the whole headphone microphone thing for a while, but everybody was telling me that it sounded awful,
Yeah.
and I just kind of wanted to. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna upgrade, and I need a really good sounding mic for like recording, like videos for my game or something like that. If I'm gonna talk over things,
Yeah.
so I was just like, let me just look up what people are doing now, and
The
I just
fir-
kind of grabbed the I don't even remember what it was called, but it's essentially the I think it's this package. Whatever. It's this thing.
yeah.
But it looks good and it sounds good, and I got like the little extendy arm, which I'm really glad I did because I'm just like, okay, here it is, and then I can just kind of
Make it go away. And also,
make it
like,
going.
you don't get the desk noises that I get with my little shitty mic on a stand. I do like, when I first decided, I don't know what came over me. I was just like, I don't like any of the videos on YouTube for stuff, and I wanted to make a YouTube video to just showcase some stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do any research whatsoever in how to record voice. So I grabbed my phone and had like recorded it off of a phone, and it sounds awful. I went back and I listened to some of those early tutorials I did on YouTube like 4 years ago. It
Uh-huh.
sounds like a bitch in a can down a hall. Like it's so grating, I can't even listen to it, and I made
That's
it.
funny. All right,
It's
I'm
a
almost done. I'm just gonna paste into here. I'll do an at everyone.
okay. Let me pull up my notes. We are going to talk about Gamescom and PAX, and I want to talk about Stadia a little bit. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to get sued.
See, streaming live now. On
Let's see. This is first thing in the morning. Shouldn't agree to do this first thing in the morning. My hair's all shit.
I actually threw my head under the sink just so I could, because like for the last few days I've just had like the weirdest cowlicks everywhere. I was like, yeah, I'm probably just gonna fix that. Okay, so I posted there. I'm gonna post on Mapcore as well. Shoot,
Like a fucking
they don't really have like an indie dev, or maybe I'll just do chat. Um, streaming
Mapcore.
live.
You're so indie, Mojica.
I was born indie. No, it's just like one giant modding scene.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Just different degrees of modding.
There's so many little micro groups within indie. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's really interesting actually. I think being a part of the so you were a part of like the mega booth where I was a part of the mini booth,
Oh
and
yeah.
what's kind of fun and interesting about that, actually, you know what? I'm gonna save that story. Why don't we start?
Oh yeah. Good idea.
Let me hit record. Or you ready? You count it
All
down.
right, hold on. Yeah. So, chat, we're gonna ignore you for a bit. We're gonna record a podcast now. Cough up a lung, quick, Micah.
Okay, I'm good. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna pop this and get a sip.
That's a good idea. All right, I'm out of water. It's go time.
What? You're out of water? You should get some more water.
No, I
Are
have
you
coffee.
crazy?
It's like water, but better. Okay.
I'm ready when you are.
All right. Three. You gonna? It's a three, two, one. Okay.
Okay, like 3, 2, 1, go.
Just on one, hit the button.
Okay.
Okay. Three, two, one.
Okay.
And we're back. And we're in.
We're in the box.
We're in the dialogue box. This is the dialogue box. Today it's going to be Gwen Frey and Jason Mojica is rejoining us from Proteus. Chris Light. Yeah. Hey, what's up? Chris Light can't join us today because A, it's a Monday, and we couldn't record over the weekend because he is ill from PAX. His voice is gone.
Does he have the PAX Pox?
He has the PAX Pox, yes.
Ooh.
Probably for me. I went to PAX sick. I might be patient zero. I take responsibility.
like when did like everybody's recalling now, they're like, when did I meet Gwen during PAX? And did I wash my hands afterwards?
Yeah, I carried around halls and hand sanitizer and I did the best I could, but you know, it's just like it was weaponized too, because I went to Germany for Gamescom and I got violently ill, and I took that pan-European bug back to Boston, weaponized it over 2 days, and then brought it to PAX.
I'm surprised they didn't quarantine you in customs on your way back.
I'm like, you cannot re-enter the country. You are a mess. Yeah.
That's crazy. Wait, so while you were at Gamescom, you were like completely sick and just like out of it the whole time? Or?
No. I was sick and out of it basically after it ended. This is a very common thing. I used to know this. This is famous back at when you were working in theater and stuff. There's something where during a show you won't get sick, but immediately afterwards everyone is ill.
Right.
Like something about the adrenaline of the moment or something of being a part of a show. Yeah, holds it back. And then the second it ends, everybody gets sick. But I feel like that must have happened because I'll admit I was a little under the weather before Germany, and then I was fine for Gamescom, and then I was just sick as hell. Like asleep for 14 hours a day, just out of it for days in that little in-between time. And I kind of brought that into the first day of PAX, and then I worked. But you know, the show must go on, right? So
it's got to go on. You got to at least be presentable at 100% while you're there.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about, so you had to be there for all 4 days, whereas I only had to be there for 2, and then I immediately bolted. I wish it could have stayed around for Sunday, actually, now that I think about it, and network a bit more, but I wouldn't have been able to. My voice, literally after day 2, and this is something that I just need to get good at doing, which is saving my voice, or like talking like Bob Ross, I guess, the whole time, because like after day 2, I was like, it's like this, and I couldn't say anything.
Yeah,
it was bad.
Well, the difference there is also, I've experienced that. It's very different if you have a group. Like, if you're it is a lot harder to stand there and be the only person in a booth for a full day than to work 4 hours spread out throughout a day for 4 days. You know what I mean?
Oh, is that what you guys did?
Yeah.
You guys like took shifts and stuff?
I rolled deep with the crew. I had everybody worked about took about a third of the time to half the time off.
Oh, wow.
Which is important. Like, just to save your voice, to save your ability to stand there, to save your energy. Because being on for 8 hours straight consecutively, I just don't think people are meant to do that. Not nerds like us. That's not normal. Like, it's just not possible.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, when I was, so I did DreamHack a little earlier as well, and it was nowhere as like crowded as PAX. But by the third day, I was definitely feeling it. But I had about 4 people with me that kind of were picking up on my spiel, and were, you know, my buddies were like, what's interesting is like their role for the most part, I was like, you know, guys, this is your first time at like a con, like just go have fun. I'm going to run the booth for a bit. And they basically networked for me while we were there. It was crazy. Like everybody's like, oh, I love your game. And they're like, you should go check out our game. And like the people were stopping by, and like we got because I just don't have time to network. So we ended up getting invited to all these different like indie hangouts afterwards because of my buddies. And they like one of my friends, Micah, he just literally made friends with pretty much everybody. He's just like a salesman or something. And by the time that I got to these events with them, they were like, oh my God. I was like, how did you make friends with these people? There's like literally like a day where we were doing that, but I found that fun, and but like I just didn't really have the time to do that during PAX, unfortunately. Uh,
Yeah, and
but
that's honestly one of the best things about those shows because there's how do I put it? I really enjoy shows because there's a lot of conversations that you just can't have,
yeah,
like about what we do, about the finer points of game design, about
sure.
bitching about specifics about the engine that like you'll just never have, and you can't really have those conversations on Twitter necessarily because
Mm, the
there's a
mob.
delta. There's the mob, obviously. Yes, that's horrifying. But there's also just the delta of skill sets and the delta of what people are dealing with on a day
Mhm.
to day basis. And there's no one indie. We've talked about this before. Like there's different bubbles. There's different people with different focuses, right?
Right.
Whereas when you're at something like you were in the mini booth, you were around a bunch of people who had projects about the same scope as you, and you can just go hang out with people who are your peers who live all over the world and like get a drink and talk about very specific stuff. And to me that's one of the fun things about these shows.
Yeah.
It's more fun than it is. I will tell you that I will not get the money back
Yeah.
that I spent on
Yeah.
PAX.
I think that's an interesting point of discussion. Um, I had a lot of discussions about, is the money you put in worth it? And I think on that point of getting to meet other indies in person, and just networking and getting to know more people, it's a good thing. And not only that, but like, I don't know, just on the side of like filling up the heart o meter, where like you need to like meet people that you haven't seen in a while and stuff like that. I was meeting all my old school Raven buddies were like swinging by. And even the one of my dudes, Justin, he brought his kids, and they were all like 16, and I hadn't and I when we knew each other, they were like 4 years old, so it was kind of funny. And then we actually had a lot in common with like first person shooters, so it's really funny. And like it was good to it's I think that kind of stuff is always good for the heart, just to like, just to get out there,
It's good to
meet people, have good
yeah,
conversation.
especially like I found when I first went indie, it was incredibly isolating because I didn't have like when we were at Irrational, you have a built-in friend group and a group I can go talk about the game. I can bitch about
Yep.
the different departments and what everybody's doing wrong and like
Right.
the engine
Multiplayer. Ah!
NDA. But the like we had that built in, but as soon as you went indie, you didn't have that anymore, right? And so that was when shows became a lot more fun for me. I think
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely
and I think
for the heart.
I completely agree. Yes, there's definitely like a good sense of camaraderie. I mean, when we were in the mini booth, what's interesting about the mini booth, and I like it and I dislike it in different ways. So there's like some good pros and cons, but I think the pros that I really enjoyed was that because you don't have a divider next to you and the other person, you just lean over and you're like, "Hey man, how's it going? Like what's your game?" And we start talking like immediately. And the guy next to me had this really cool sort of like live FTL type game where you build the ships and then fight them against other things and other ships. And it was really integrated and really cool. And he had been working on it on and off for like 8 years. And I was just like, wow, it shows, dude. Like this is amazing. Like this looks insane. And we were asking him all kinds of questions. And then the guy, I mean, it was completely different than my game. And I imagine they purposely make sure things are paced out, but
Yeah.
pretty much everybody, like I didn't see another first person shooter while I was there. So I feel like they did a really great job of,
I think for one thing I've been going to these for a while, and I think the PAX West booth I've only gone to two of those, but
mhm.
I've noticed that they do a really good job at PAX West. I think even better than PAX East, partly just because there's a bigger scene in Seattle probably and a bigger scene on the West Coast in general.
You think so?
I think there's
You
more
think
indie.
that you think that
Oh,
Seattle
there's
is bigger
more.
than
There,
Boston?
yes, is that a joke? You don't
I don't
think
know.
there's more development in Seattle than Boston?
Well, no. Let me take that back. You're so correct. But for some reason, I remember the one in Boston just being super busy. Maybe it was because it was just all in one floor.
Yeah, whereas that's a cut across two floors, but also just the quality bar is higher. It's not necessarily that there's more stuff, it's that because there's more competition, there's the same amount of stuff, but the quality bar is higher. I would argue.
Interesting.
It also, once you have more options, you can curate a little bit differently.
Hmm.
And they do put a lot of effort into curation. I'll like, the more I get to know people who organize different shows, the more respect I have for it. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
not just the curation that goes into it, but I the weird squabbles over booth placements that happen that none of us see on the PAX
Yeah.
show floor. The fact that things like Unity at GDC, Unity was slow in Unity tried to negotiate with GDC to get a bigger, or to not have to pay more money for their booth. So Epic stepped in and bought their booth. And then Unity had to buy a different booth that was in a different place, which was less ideal. And that's why there's like there's like the Unreal Engine booth and the Epic Game Store booth at GDC now.
Oh
And
my
that stuff
gosh.
rolls over for like years. This petty shit you don't realize, right? Like, or
No, I'm sure I mean, it's gotta happen because like booth placement is important.
yeah.
You know?
Oh, the like over our heads there is a fucking war that you
Yeah.
don't even know about. And I don't know how Kelly Wallach did it, but I really like the placement of the Indie Mega booth at PAX West
Yeah.
specifically. It's a good spot. It's on the main floor next to all the bigger stuff. So the PAX West is split into two floors. And the top floor has
Yeah.
lower ceilings, and something about it. It does feel kind of cozier and more indie in a way, but it also feels like these are where the lower budget games are. Whereas there's something very nice about having your game there next to all these other polished games on the main
Yeah. Yeah.
floor.
Yeah.
I just like the
Yeah, for
placement.
sure. I didn't think about that, but yeah, one of my buddies who was working with me at Starbreeze, he went to go work in I think Poland at a company called Polyamorous. Anyways, long story short, the Polish indie game scene was on the top floor, and they had a whole Polish section, which was really cool. And I didn't even know that. I was like walking around. I was like, what do I recognize that game over there? And it was just like, oh, cool. Like the whole Polish indie scene is out here, like
Do
representing.
you
And that was like,
do you ever
that
get
was really
jealous
cool.
of that? Do you ever get jealous that other countries like sponsor game dev? Like you go to Gamescom especially, that's the worst because you go to the business area and it's like Poland sponsored a booth. Here's all the Polish games. France sponsored a booth. Like these
That's
countries are
cool.
sponsoring booths. I'll never get that. I'm jealous. I want to just take my. You know how much money I pay for this shit?
Well, it'd be like the America booth would literally be most of it, and then it would just be Call of Duty, and and it wouldn't be
Yeah,
as indie.
yeah,
I
that's
think what
true.
was great about I think so. My first experience being at the Indie Mega booth was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. I liked seeing all the people. What's kind of funny too is that uh, do you know who Jesse Shell is?
I know
Um,
of this person. I'm not as
yeah,
connected as you.
no, I'm not connected either, but his booth and his company Shell Games was literally on the other side of the wall than than our booth.
Uh-huh.
And at one point I was able to like talk with him, be like, "Oh yeah, I do. I really like your game." And I talked prototypes with him for a second, and cuz like I really like back in the day when I was quitting Starbreeze and moving back to the US, I was thinking like what are my top 3 companies that I want to work at, and like his was one of them. So I was like the whole time we're on the other side of the wall from like, and he's actually there like talking to people, and I really enjoy his design sense. Like he's got a really strong design sense. So I really wanted to just like chat him up for hours, but it was like, oh yeah, let me just like say hi, and it was cool. Like you don't normally get to do that kind of stuff, so I found that kind of fun just to be a part of that atmosphere, and everybody around was just,
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
it
it's
felt
hit
really
or
cool.
I will say it's hit or miss though. Like I definitely went the first time I went to Gamescom, I didn't know anybody and I didn't have a game to show. I was there to where was it? Oh, I did. I was showing a game, but I was showing it in the Microsoft area.
Okay,
And
that was the
like
molasses flood.
yeah, this is back when it was the Molasses Flood. I was showing, and that was I could go into why that was brutal. I was the only one there. Gamescom's a massive show.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was like, and I've like I swore I'd never go to Gamescom again, and then I did. But like that was a bad time, and I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have that experience. Maybe because it's a foreign country, and I didn't, like nobody really goes there from here.
Is it the same building always?
Gamescom is I don't know how to explain it to you. It's at least 15 times bigger than PAX, the one we just did.
What?
It's multiple buildings,
You know what's crazy about
but
that
like
is that this PAX was also multiple buildings. It was like all the hotels around,
True, true.
and I
This
had no
so
idea.
Gamescom, that's true. Something that's unique to PAX and isn't in Gamescom is like the what do you want to call them? The talks, the panels.
Yeah,
I
the panels.
actually like PAX is fun for a gamer. You know, to like sit down and
Yeah,
like the all the stuff they do. It's uh, I personally feel like I wouldn't want to go to something like Gamescom because where the only experience you have is waiting in a massive line to play a game.
yeah,
I really like all the other stuff where they have like the LAN party area and like you can go see the
yeah,
different shows. I like the variety of it a lot.
yeah.
Have you,
DreamHack was, I think in a few years, DreamHack will be pretty big like that. But the thing about DreamHack, and you can really tell at these different venues, is like people go to DreamHack to watch the pro esports games.
yeah,
They're not really there to play your games necessarily. So it's definitely like a lot slower, and it wasn't as packed as it could have been like PAX was. But I think in a few years it's going to be pretty big. And I think the thing that I found surprising and fun at PAX was that there were just publishers walking by and being like,
true.
they were checking out all the games and walking
That's
up and being like, "Hey, we really like your game. We want to do something with you." And
that's a lot more effective if you're in the indie mega booth though, or mini
yeah,
booth. If you're in that group, because they curate it, the publishers can swing by and know these are the bigger games
hmm
because it's curated. I'm curious. We should talk to somebody who was upstairs and see if they got that same treatment.
I could ask my buddy, but like, yeah, he's not really like, yeah, I don't know. I'd be interested.
And
Well, you know what?
the other thing is how much money are you willing to pay to have like so
Your
this
own booth.
well there's that, but like also how do I put it? PAX is probably not worth the money. Like as much as I love talking to people and that's good and all, like PAX is a couple $1,000s. Do you
Yeah.
think that could have been another trailer? Like, if you really put your mind to it, do you think it was exactly as beneficial? It's hard to say.
Well, I don't think so. I think I ended up spending around. It was close to like, it was like 4,500 or something like that when I went to DreamHack, and that was because I had to get a hotel, um, and that was expensive. I also rented a car because I didn't know how far away the venue was. Car was needed though, but probably could do Ubers next time. But like when I went to PAX, it was like we're gonna go on a scrappy dappy budget. We're gonna go mini booth, and I think we only spent around $2,000 this time because the mini booth cost us like 1,500 or something. I don't know. It was like around that. But the DreamHack one was free, but I still spent way more. and but I think in terms like so, I was talking to Tynan about this. He used to work with us at Irrational, and I think maybe he left before you got there, or
No,
maybe
we
a little
overlapped a little
after.
bit. Tining's
Okay,
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he made that really awesome game.
I'm kind of a fan
Rim,
of RimWorld, yeah.
yeah, RimWorld. And I was talking to him about my game and just like, in general, and I asked him like what he thought about, going to conventions and stuff. And generally speaking, his thought was, conventions are generally a waste of time and money because, like for example, and I'm not trying to boast here or anything. It's just numbers. So like I put out our first trailer and it reached like 120,000 people. Like we didn't even reach a fraction, like a 0.1% of that, at PAX or DreamHack. Only a few hundred people would like stop by and play the game. Um, and I feel like I don't know what the conversion rate is on something like that, but it's true. It's like you put out a trailer and you reach a lot more people a lot quicker. And generally speaking, it's you didn't spend like I didn't even like our first trailer that we put out. Mike put together in an afternoon, and we just kind of cut the gameplay footage together and just slapped it in. We didn't do any fancy titles or anything like that. It was just here's the game,
Sure.
and and then it went really well. And then we did like a 12-minute gameplay thing during our Kickstarter, and that's almost at 200,000. I just feel like you just don't reach those numbers when you go to an event like this. But then you don't go to an event like this to reach those numbers. You go because you want to interface with the fans, Um,
Yeah.
like
Well,
yeah,
there's
go ahead.
if you're doing it right, you line up interviews with the press. You make sure the press come through and play your game, right?
Yeah,
Which I didn't do a very good job of. The other
neither
thing
did
is we're
I.
competing with other people for that. Oh
Yeah,
no, oh no, Art. Hold on, the stream went down.
did it?
Yeah.
Still up for me. Okay, we'll see.
Okay. Wait, so are we still up?
Yeah, I mean, while you're saying the stream went down, it's still up for me.
Oh, never mind. Okay. I guess mine's just
Are you good now? Are you good?
no, I don't see it anymore. But if everybody else does, I don't care. Um,
They're saying it's still up.
okay. Never mind. I just can't see it. I can
What's
see
up,
you,
chat?
Mojica.
I can see you.
All right. We'll
Just
cut.
don't pick your nose if you can't see yourself, because you are on.
Okay, fine. We'll cut that from the podcast. Where was I?
um,
So yeah. So I, if you're doing it right, I think you line up interviews with the press, uh, and that so it becomes kind of like a force multiplier in that way. You ideally use this as a time to, if you have a publisher, to hang out with your publisher and like gets into them a little bit better. I think theoretically, I don't know what the deal is with getting to know. Supposedly, if you get to know Sony, you can get to know people there, and then I guess that helps you in some way.
sure.
I don't know. None of this has ever borne that those last ones specifically have never really borne fruit for me. I would say, I mean, it is true. Like it was good, kindness coming out in Stadia, and it was good to meet the Stadia team
Yeah,
and like have drinks and talk about cert and what we're doing going forward, long term
sure.
stuff for the platform. Like it is useful to do some biz dev stuff while you're there, so you get that. There's an argument that there's just you have to do a lot of variety of different kinds of marketing, and this
Mm-hmm.
is a kind of a marketing. And there is definitely, because you were part of the indie mega booth, you got on their website and you were
Sure. I mean,
promoted through
oh,
their channels and stuff like that.
Steam
So
put us up on the front page. Did you see that?
I didn't get put up there. I mean, I saw every.
You should go check your if you still have a Steam page. You should check your wish lists and see if they just got a spike during PAX
Okay.
because we got like over 2,000. It was nice. We got like 2,000 wish list ads because we're not live yet. But that was humbling to see that, and um, I completely agree. I mean, I know that like the bare fruit of like meeting other people and stuff like that. I mean, I think there's an interesting part about that because like generally speaking, I think you have to be in a good position to help other people out. Like most of the time it's like you have a skill set that another team needs and you guys can help each other out because you have knowledge that like the other person doesn't.
Oh,
They're like,
for helping other people that you meet at the indie mega booth and
yeah,
stuff
generally
like that.
speaking, I think that's where that most of that fruit really just comes into light, like if you have the ability to do that or not. And that kind of stuff usually bears more things like I mean it's just there's a lot of stuff with that, like you
It
help
is.
somebody out, they help you out.
There is the thing. It's hard to explain. Where most of the people, if I ever grow Chump Squad, most of the people I want to hire, I also want to have their own studios, so they're impossible for me to hire. Do you understand what I'm
Right.
saying? Which is
Yeah.
frustrating. Like they're, but
Well, I think that's interesting because I think if you're solo you can still do
you can collaborate, for
you can still
instance.
collaborate. And I think there's one of the things that I was excited about too when I first, switched over was like, oh, I'm gonna hit up all these people that I really enjoy their artwork on Twitter, and I'm gonna send them like ideas and be like, hey, do you wanna collaborate on something? And I was doing a collaboration with one guy. It kind of fell through, but I mean, it was like, oh, cool. We're gonna get to work together. We're gonna do something fun, and we were both really excited about it. And it just seemed like one of those things that like you don't really get to do if you're a part of a bigger team. There's responsibilities, but if you're part of like if you're just doing a solo adventure, you can have fun and you can kind of do weird stuff that you normally wouldn't be able to do, and I think that expands you as like an individual. But that kind of stuff comes through when you're at PAX and you're meeting all these other indies and you're sharing ideas, and
So in my like little cult of people making puzzle games right now, one of the
Mhm.
cooler examples of that is definitely Bob Is You.
But
Like
oh wow, yeah.
large parts of that were made by other developers. Like
Oh cool.
the Hazel Den is Alan Hazelden.
Oh,
Like
that's cool.
or like all the puzzle nerds got together and helped Humbly with helped, collaborated and did
Sure,
different
sure.
things with him. I always think this, yeah, stuff like that is super cool. That was one of the ideas I had very early on, was I wanted to, I mean, at the time I was still thinking very AAA. So I was like, wouldn't it be neat to make a series of puzzle games that leverage other people's IPs, like talk to Double Fine at the time they weren't bought
Yeah.
by Microsoft, and like do something with Raz and stuff like that. To me, that
Yeah,
would
I
be
think
fun.
that's yeah, but like yeah, that's I think in a unique position to be able to do something like that. And I think it's more acceptable on like the smaller scale for some reason.
It's
Um,
well, you have fewer parties to negotiate with, right? Like if you want to do
right.
something, if you want to do something with a bigger company, like say you want to do something with the Call of Duty IP, now you're talking about licensing an IP. It's not about collaborating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if
Yeah.
you
It's
hit
more
that mid tier, like I want to do something with Double Fine is the best example, or like
sure.
a known IP that's out there. Maybe something like oh man, just think of all the games that you're a
Yeah.
fan. Me personally, like oh, what's a good example?
There was I mean, I've got like a lot of indie games that I really love. Like, for example, you could do a collaboration with like Inside, or like the Play Dead guys,
I could.
No, I mean like
Oh
just
well,
in
like
general, like
in life,
it's like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it sounds like something that would be really exciting. Do a little collaboration. There was one indie game that was made. One of my friends made it, and I'm obsessed with it for no reason, no good reason. It's called Echo, and their company was called Ultra Ultra, and I found out recently that they had to defunct, and it made me super upset because it was like one of my favorite stealth design games that I've like almost ever played, and I've always wanted to do like a collaboration with them, but now it's like not even a possibility anymore.
Well,
But
they're
like
not.
that, like
The
yeah,
people aren't dead.
no, but like the IP is now owned by somebody, and
Oh
you know
yeah.
what I mean. And they all had to split and go work at companies again, and I was just kind of like bummed out by that because I thought wow, these guys are going places. And then I guess through some mismanagement of like they bought an office and they had multiple people and they were paying for their payments were outweighing their input or something. Well, we talk about PAX.
Yeah, we don't want to go into the dark. All the things. This is
Yeah.
where, like, I'm close friends with Alan Hazelden. I want to get him on here again, but every now and then I like hear the whispers about not just him, like a lot of indies that I respect and that I think are very, very good at making games and just very bad at making games. Like there's I mean, like very good at really interesting ideas, especially in the puzzle community. I don't know what it is about
Sure.
specifically people making puzzle games where it's like they have
Well, yeah.
amazing ideas and no idea really what things should cost or how to spend money wisely
Right.
in a way that's shocking.
It's a skill set. It really is.
Yeah, but you would think like you would think like I mean like this like puzzle games are made by smarter people. I don't know. It's like I would like if you're like a bro making like Mojica, I love you, man, but like if you're like a if you're like making shooter mods, you're like I like to make like shooter mods. Like
Hmm.
maybe I understand you're bad at money and planning, but like I think
Probably.
puzzle people who make puzzles, I just assume a certain amount of you know what we're gonna stop. I'm gonna start shitting on people. Like
No,
doesn't
I
matter.
honestly do think it's a skill set. Like you have to actively. Well, I think it comes with experience, and you have to go through that experience at least once to know
Yeah.
more. Because like somebody just starting out, they don't know how much things cost, and I think there's a what was interesting a long time ago. We hung out, me, you, and Forrest, and I think a few other people. I think Alina was there. Alina was there, and we were talking about a bunch of different job sets, and then you were like, "Yeah, I've been really getting into like I think you like the money aspect, and like you were really digging in and you enjoyed that. And I was like, oh, that's surprising, like because everybody that's usually creative doesn't want to dive into that side of things, but it's like a super useful skill set, and I think it's undervalued by a lot of people, and it's super important. So I'm kind of glad that I also like started to shift over to that, and I was just thinking like, okay, well, this is you as an indie. I think the future of like indies and like a stupid like one sentence thing is like literally like you have a small team, one or two people, and then or like under five
Mm-hmm.
people, hopefully, and then you contract out smart. You know,
You're repeating the things that I believe in. I've said, yes.
yeah.
You keep your core team
So I
very
mean,
small, rely on outsourcing, especially because in any production, for the most part, you're going to have a huge amount of content that you need to fire hose into the game towards the end. And you need
right.
to be able to grow the team and then shrink it again. And the easiest way to do that is contracting. And we can go into the ethics of it because I've said it a million times, but
Yeah,
I
I mean
don't,
it's yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's definitely like a scary thing about having employees. We'll just put it there. That's
Oh,
another
yeah.
discussion.
That's,
But
yeah.
sort of like maybe back on PAX talk.
Yeah, yeah, fair.
uh,
Sorry.
we were talking about like networking and stuff, and you know what's funny? It is so hard not to notice him, but Rami was walking by, and
He's
uh,
very
he
tall.
he's super tall, and he like the guy. I was talking to some publisher, and he tapped the guy on the shoulder to say like, "Hey, I haven't sorry I missed you," and then. I was just like, oh, hey, it's Rami. And I was like, hey. And I sort of did that like stupid nerdy thing where I was like, I think we follow each other. And it's dumb because he follows like 12,000 people. So I think in his head, it was like, yeah, of course I follow you. Like, but it was like, I was talking to him and just like telling him about my game and stuff like that. And I don't know, it was just kind of funny. I mean, he's such a chill dude. It's insane. But yeah, that was kind of funny to just like, I was like, oh yeah, he's actually really huge. I was like, wow, okay.
This is your takeaway?
Yeah,
Wow, Rami is tall in real life.
that's the takeaway. Is just like, oh, that's cool. That's pretty neat. He's not small. That's great. Not that small things are bad, Steve. Sorry.
What?
Yeah,
What?
actually, yeah. Anyways, continue.
Who is Steve?
Well, my boothmate Steve, who was hanging out with me the whole time, he actually made it possible for me to get through PAX.
You did have somebody with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like drinking so much that I had to take a bathroom break like every 30 minutes or something like that. TMI, but
No,
yeah.
that's good. Usually, you're dehydrated when you think about it and you realize you haven't done that for the entire day. That's a very bad sign. That's a sign your
Mm.
kidneys are gonna fail. You need to go get
Oh
more
yeah.
water. Most people don't drink enough water when they're so like if you're not used to it, you don't drink enough water your first bag, so you kind of become really dehydrated. Like
I see him chat with the sad face. Sorry, Steve. Um yeah, no, so like what other things that let me see. Besides PAX though, like I really thought that the city was beautiful. That was my first time being to Seattle, and I mean it was gorgeous.
yeah.
Like just you could like so what's funny about that is that I've played a lot of like Half-Life 2, and you can really see, oh, this is Seattle. Like episode 2 is like, oh, it's just Seattle. They have all the trees and stuff like that. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
I
I
just
loved
hadn't
it.
been there before. Did you have you had a chance to explore Seattle while you were there?
Just a little bit. I mean, I've been there before, so to me it was less exciting, and also I was violently ill.
It's
So
true. True.
I did get better towards the end of PAX, and I did hang out and like, like have tea and get some. I don't remember. There's a place called Proshki down at Pike's Place that I always go to. It's like a
Oh,
thing I
okay.
just do every time now. I just go
Oh,
down there and
nice.
get a pastry. Though I have to
Like,
admit, you reach a point once you've worked, especially two shows back to back, where you're like, the last thing I need is more crap. Like all I would kill for a vegetable, because you just don't see vegetables. Like
no.
it's just not gonna happen. You're gonna live on hot dogs and crap. You're gonna go to the parties. You're gonna eat the finger food. You're just gonna feel like you're slowly dying. Like
Yeah.
that's my experience, and I love it at first, and I just hate it afterwards. Like by the end, you are kind of sick, you know. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that rolled Gamescom went to PAX, and now they're heading out to Dubrovnik for like whatever the meetup is out there. I feel like there's just too many of these shows.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of grates, and you kind of have to pick and choose. I do think that the PAX ones are the
Oops.
best to meet with other indies. I'm sure there's more.
Yes.
Like the thing is, like Memphis just doesn't have a big indie scene.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
what was that? Oh, it like flickered for a second.
That was me. I was alt tabbing to see the chat, and it.
Okay, yeah. Now I've got like a little picture of you in my corner. It's like people watching, they're gonna be like, "Oh, he's just got like a picture of Gwen on." It's funny. Hey, so you mentioned that you did a PAX panel. You were on a PAX panel this
Yeah.
year. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay. Yeah, so we do what do you call it? So, do you know what the Great British Bake Off is? Have you
I
heard of
kind
this?
of am aware of it. It's like,
It's like a baking show.
sure.
Yeah, so we did that, but with easy bake ovens. It's a regular thing we do. This is our second time doing it. It's like a show, a bunch of get a bunch of people. This time it was like Chris Charla, who's head of ID at Xbox, and
Oh, that's
like
cool.
just big game dev people come and they try to bake confections in an hour in an easy bake oven, and it's awful. Like that's not enough time to cook a thing. Not in that like the easy bake oven is basically baking with a light bulb. It's like not gonna work. And
Would you try and make?
I didn't. I'm one of the judges,
Oh,
so
you're one of the judges. Oh,
I have
okay.
to eat it. That's this
You're
is the
like,
it is fun. I don't know. I've sat down and I've tried to work out how valuable this stuff is for marketing. Like I think we might just be because people are trying to convince me like no, this is good marketing. I'm like, how are we marketing Kine right now? I am really confused about exactly what this is. This goes back to are you marketing a game or are you marketing yourself? And
it's
do you
both.
want to? Yeah.
Yeah, it's both. I
Uh,
mean, I ended up like not really leaving my booth except when we went to go grab lunch. I don't think I left my booth like at all
mhm.
besides the bathroom breaks or whatever. But like, yeah, I just stayed there the entire time. Was just like, yep, people are coming by. Like, for example, because we had the Kickstarter, we sent an email saying like, hey, we're gonna be at PAX, and I had a bunch of T-shirts with me, and I was just giving them to people who stopped by that were like, oh yeah, I backed you on Kickstarter, and it was like, oh, like shoot, like this is somebody who's like basically bought the game already, and I was like, well, here, like enjoy this T-shirt, and
Oh,
it
I
was
fucked up with the t-shirts, man.
what happened?
I bought 300 t-shirts and they all say
Oh,
PAX 2019 on them.
oh my gosh,
I sold
that's a lot.
I
That's a
sold
lot.
50 of those fuckers.
Well, that you probably made your money back then.
I have to look it up. I don't think so.
Oh,
No,
that's
not when you count
crazy.
shipping and the fact that I had to like bring them there and bring back 250 fucking t-shirts on a
You know what?
plane.
It's funny because like we did that for DreamHack. We like so one of my booth mates, his brother runs a t-shirt company
Mm.
called G5Ts, represent G5Ts. And when we ordered from him, we only ordered like I think we ordered like 20 t-shirts, and each of us got three, so we didn't have to like wash our shirts or whatever. But then we were giving them out to contest winners and stuff. But the back says DreamHack Crew. Like I wrote it sort of like I just kind of took their font and like wrote DreamHack Team, like Proteus DreamHack Team. And when I posted that on Twitter, uh, the the DreamHack people freaked out.
Ooh.
They were like, "Oh my gosh, you wrote DreamHack in our font on your t-shirts
Oh, you don't
and
fuck with that, man. That's
I
somebody else's brand. Yeah, they could get really mad.
well, they totally did. But the funny thing was, they didn't. Nobody had sent us a thing that said, "Don't use the brand in any way." And I looked through all my emails. I didn't see anything. And then they sent out another one that was like a PDF that had like all the information. But the one thing that we did wasn't necessarily noted on the PDF that they sent out. So we kind of got away with it. But we brought tape with us just in case they got upset while we were there. We could cover it up the word dream hack. And then it would have just said like ream hack or like or something stupid. So we were able to cut. We could have covered that up if we wanted to.
Dude, the wars are fought over the dumbest shit, but this is one of those things that people really fight about. Is
Yeah, and
their
for
logos and their representation in this way?
yeah, well, that was the thing. We didn't have their logo. It was just the word
That's even
DreamHack.
worse
And
though.
I know.
Like,
Well,
I mean, I think the worst thing you can do is make a version that's close to their logo but not their logo.
mhm,
And I don't know all the reasons why that's really awful, but for one thing, not only does it put the wrong branding out there, and they've spent probably a crap ton of money on their branding, especially if it's a bigger company,
yeah.
it also opens them up to liability if they know about it and don't do something about it because now
Yep.
people can knock off their brand. So,
Yeah. For some reason, I wasn't really thinking about it.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, oh yeah, I want to commemorate our first thing as a group, and I want to remember that it's DreamHack. So, like, but you said you've got, what is it, PAX 2019 or
Yeah,
something?
well, yeah. We didn't use the PAX guidelines, but it's yeah, we're in the same world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. But the thing is, it's not in their font, and it is so like this at PAX 2019. Like I was
Right.
careful enough about it
You
that
just spelled it like PACKS.
no, I wrote
But-
I wrote PAX, but it was like kind at PAX in the kind font, not
Oh,
in
okay.
the PAX font. That's when you get in the danger when it looks like you're close to the logo but not. That's when people get pissed.
Sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fucked. Like I don't know what to do with these I have too many t-shirts. I can't like I'm busy and I don't have time to like come up with some plan where I sell them because shipping to loads of people's pain. I've done this before, you know. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna come up with some sort of. I think I'm going to go to PAX 2020 here in Boston because that'll be way cheap, and I'll
Oh
sell
yeah.
secondhand old, like sell the shirts and then sell old shirts
You
or
could just
give away old shirts. I don't know. I'll figure something out. But yeah,
put like a huge discount on them, or just start. You know what? Like you know those big booths? They have like the T-shirt cannon things. Like you'll be at like a 10 by 10 booth with like a T-shirt cannon, just like shooting people walking by. Like
maybe.
T-shirt for you, and it's like old packs. Oh, that'd be so funny.
It's brutal. Yeah, so that was my one of my fuck ups. I fucked up in several ways. One was being sick and delirious for like the prep phase. That was probably not ideal. Things did go pretty smoothly considering that I bought way too many t-shirts. That was a mistake. I didn't line up any kind of like press.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have. I tried to get different PR companies. In the end, I did get a PR company that said they would help get me some interviews with the press and stuff, but they wanted another. I think it was $6,000, and I
Oh
was
wow.
like, I don't think you're gonna give me $6,000 worth of marketing. Like, I don't. Nah, I'll try myself. And then I didn't try myself because I was delirious and sick. I'm actually,
Yeah.
the game's coming out in a month, and I've got like no plan beyond this.
Yeah. I mean, do you wanna switch over to that discussion? Because I think that would be a good one.
Marketing, yeah. If you can help me with marketing, I'd be into that.
I mean,
I'll take
it was
advice.
Weird. It was weird how like, so I guess getting bombarded by a bunch of small publishers at the mini booth was sort of an interesting. It was sort of an interesting time because um, I took it to be pretend like I was kind of naive and just listen to what they had to say and like how they do things.
Who do you consider a small publisher, by the way? I'm
There
just
was a lot of small people. Like I've got all their cards right here.
just midgets. No, I'm kidding. Like just
Don't say like-
sorry.
That's
Small people like yeah, I'll cut that.
No, like,
Small people like smaller isn't very.
I'm not picking on these people because they're literally on the top of my deck. But so two people stopped by at the exact same time, and one of them was Quantum Astrophysicist Guild, and they're like a new publisher that just kind of started like a few years ago. And then I had another group that were there as well. I don't have their card next to the other guys, but yeah, I mean, there basically we had all these smaller publishers coming to our booth and wanting to basically so that I would just straight up ask them like, "What's your cut? Like, what are you looking to take, and like, what are you going to bring to the table? Like, what do you think you can do for us? And a lot of them, almost 100%, were like, we can port your stuff for you, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that's fine. But I talked to Humble. Weirdly enough, Sega stopped by and was like talking to us pretty aggressively for like 40 minutes.
Wow.
Uh, and that was kind of fun. The guy, I don't know if sometimes I feel like I'm getting car salesman sometimes, where the guy was like, I talked to like 60 or whatever indies, and he was like, but I only take like 3 indies a year or something like that. And he was like, and I really like Proteus. And I was kind of like, okay, well, that felt like a little snake oil to me. So I mean, we'll see, if they reach out, because like I'm not gonna reach out. But I know I find that kind of interesting. And but the little guys are coming up, and I was asking everybody questions and things that like I didn't necessarily know, or was like curious as like how a publisher would handle something. So I would literally be like, well, so how quick is your turnaround for updates on the Switch? And they would be like, and the guy, I think he kind of knew that I was kind of fishing, and then he'd be like, well, and then I was like, well, does it take like a month or whatever? And he was like, no, we can push an update to the Switch within like a week or of the other updates or something. And I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. And they were, I mean, just all kinds of things that I wasn't really 100% on. I was just bugging them about that stuff that I wasn't sure about. So I kind of took that PAX ride as like a different opportunity to really just get more knowledge about publishing. One of the things that I didn't know is that there are, people have like partners on Nintendo. So like if you're a partner, I didn't know you could do this. It's kind of cool. If you have a bunch of games on there, and I guess you're like a mini publisher or something, you can send updates, like almost like a Steam notification. I didn't know this, you could do this, but like any new game that they ship or they publish or whatever, they can send a notification to anybody who's had one of their previous games, and it'll tell them about the new game coming out. And
I didn't
that's
know they
like,
did that.
that's pretty cool. I didn't know you could do that. One of the guys from Cubic, he's a Polish developer. I was talking to him about that, and I was like, I didn't know you could do that, and I thought that was really cool, that he can do that. And I don't know if like anybody can get that status or not, but it was still pretty cool to learn about some of that stuff. And then I don't know, basically just everybody wanted to do our ports for us, and
That's
some
because that's,
people,
of course, that's the safest thing. By the
yeah.
time if you've proven that it'll work on one platform, then it simplifies the equation a lot, right? There's significantly less risk versus investing in something that needs money on PC or for the first push. Which also means because it's less risk, they better be taking way less money, and don't you dare give them any of the revenue from PC,
Right. I was asking about that
which they will
too.
all ask for.
Yeah, based on something that you told me last podcast that we were on, I was asking that question. I was literally like, so do you guys take, console SKU if you're not doing it? And like, what does this look like? And the Humble guys are really nice. Funny thing was, and I guess they didn't even notice this, but like one guy was named John. His first name was John,
John
and the other
Polson?
guy's, yeah, I think, yeah, and the other guy's name was Connor. And I was like, you guys are John Connor?
That never occurred to me.
I was like, you guys are literally John Connor. And they kind of giggled because like they hadn't heard that before. But I was like, you haven't heard that before? But no, they were cool, and I really enjoyed talking with those guys. And yeah, no, it was a really interesting ride. I would say, and the other thing that might not be super fruitful, but there was a lot of merchandise stores upstairs,
Yeah.
and I really want some Proteus pajamas. So, so I was like, I went upstairs and I was fishing around. I was like, I talked to somebody from Fan Gamer. Was like, hey, I don't know how you guys normally do things, but like, I would love to like, just chat with you guys about potential merch opportunities, and things like that. And I really want to get some kind of like merch thing lined up. But I've never done that before, so I have no idea what that really entails. But I imagine,
Honestly, that's outside my sphere as well. Like that is that just becomes, that is where a publisher would be useful. Somebody that knows that kind of stuff. That's one of
Yeah.
those things where I think I'm in a different boat from you. Like personally, when I think about the trajectory of like if shit went really, really well, what I would want would be
Hmm.
not to. I enjoy being self-published, though I kind of enjoy a lot of this stuff,
Hmm.
the business stuff. But I think there is a point where it makes sense to be purchased by somebody like Microsoft.
Sure.
I think I'm the only indie that's like, actually, my goal is to not be indie. Like, my goal is to one day be purchased. Have we ever talked about this before?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it comes more down to mitigating risk, and I think I see a world where we're most likely moving towards subscription services. And I
Sure.
think in a world where everything becomes like either massive AAA productions or subscription services, it's a really good idea to try to be like, I look at the studios, specifically Microsoft is the best example because they're doing this right now.
Hmm.
They're buying up a lot of studios that'll feed content into their subscription service, and at some point
Right.
they're going to lock things down so that
Yep.
most of the things feeding into their stuff is stuff they own. I just want to get in early and be one of those people that they own before the fucking, before this all, before the gates come down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the well runs dry.
Because I think
Yeah.
that is actually like there will be a point where Game Pass is amazing, but there will be a point where things that are in Game Pass are either massive AAA productions or small studios owned by Microsoft, and all the in between, the money for the in between stuff for the indies, I think will go away. That's my theory long term.
You think long term that the indie well will dry out?
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be doing gloom and stuff. I don't. I'm not like.
Well, it doesn't not
In
doom and gloom, but I
my
mean it's
opinion,
more about like realistic. We're
yeah,
discussing.
my opinion changes on things a lot, and I over time, and it is actually difficult to say. Like nobody knows the future, right?
Sure.
And I think there's different. I think there is a market for games as a service or the kinds of games that you're doing. But when I
Hmm.
think about the games that I enjoy, the kind of smaller content, things like Dicey Dungeon, how do
Yeah.
games like that survive? Inside is brilliant. It's an amazing game.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know the future for companies making games like Inside. And to me, the stability, the way you create stability is by making games like that. What? All right. I guess one of my favorite studios is actually Zectronics. Kind of
Yep.
kicks out cool puzzle games sort of every 2 years or so, maybe every 1 year cadence.
Yeah.
I think there is an argument for Microsoft buying up studios for that, like that,
Hmm.
into a subscription service. Maybe I don't know.
Well, they need
I
a
don't
they
really.
need a good breadth of different variety type stuff for that service. I mean, I could see them getting a handful of people for sure that fit that build of like small fun game, for the Game Pass stuff. I also see them doing it with like much larger AAA stuff as well. Um,
Launching,
like any
yeah.
of their Microsoft Studio stuff. Like I'm sure there's going to be like a Halo for the
Oh,
pass or
yeah.
something like that.
I mean, they're going to launch all their first party stuff directly into Game Pass. That makes sense. I guess. I mean, I don't. We're in a very interesting time where it is very. The future is very uncertain, especially with Game Pass, with subscription services, with what's going on with Stadia. I have a game coming out in Stadia, and I have no idea what Stadia is going to be in a year. You know what I mean? Like and that's important. Like if you make anything with technology, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to pivot. You have to be willing to take risks, right? Google's
Yeah,
not above that, Lord knows.
yeah, for sure.
They've got to be willing to pivot, change their business plan. Google's not afraid to cancel things. None of this is a secret, right?
Yeah, I mean, they cancel stuff all the time. It's scary.
Well, they also I'm using a Pixel and I rely on their maps, and we're talking right now in GChat on Google Hangouts, and
Right.
like you have to be willing to prune in order to focus on things that are good. And I think they put a lot of money into Stadia. Their argument would be that I think there's two arguments here. Stadia would argue the main thing I hear them say a lot is we have put so much money into this, and we've dedicated putting money into it over the next several years. There's no way this isn't going to happen.
Right.
And I actually feel like that's a really weak argument because I'm like, you're Google.
Yeah. It's sort of like the,
I think
the,
I'm,
the the thing about the Amazon stuff too, right? Like the Amazon studios, they have so much money, but yet, and I guess that the thing that's scary about that is like when you have so much money, canceling a project after 3 years in development is like just, oh yeah, we're
That's
not
true.
100% behind this. Like we're just gonna, and it hurts the devs. Like,
It
our friend Christina was like super upset about that,
Yeah,
and
I know. But I mean,
that sucks.
here's the other side of that coin though, right?
Yeah.
Because yes, there's always the risk of that, right? And that's part of good technology is being willing to pivot and so forth. Part of doing anything in the technology sphere is going to involve a certain amount of risk. But I think my
Yep.
argument would be if the worst thing you can say about a platform is that it might not exist, that's probably the best case scenario for tech. Because nobody's ever stepped forward and said Google can't do this, that there's some sort of massive technical thing, that it's not a good idea. Nobody's ever stepped forward and said, like, subscription services aren't the future or Netflix and game. People talk about how the internet isn't there yet, how 6G will take longer than you think.
Mm-hmm.
But the main argument, the main thrust everyone says is Stadia is going to be canceled. Like, anytime I
Hmm.
read anything online, and I'm like, I just feel like that's a really weak argument. I just feel like you have to be willing to take that risk if you're going to work in any tech. I feel like we work in an industry where I mean, everything is at risk of being canceled at any given
Sure.
time. That's not really, you
It's like,
know, I,
yeah,
I'm just not afraid of that, I think, in the
yeah.
same way. Like, I've just been around and seen enough shit that was a surefire bet get canceled that fear doesn't, I don't have that same, maybe I'm desensitized to that particular fear.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, yeah. I think what's because I think there's definitely another side of that too, because you're sort of in control of your own destiny, as silly as that sounds, at the moment, because solo indie dev, the smaller teams like us can survive a lot longer. And I think when you mentioned Zachtronics, for example, him and his team, they've built a brand, and you know, I do think that like there's going to be a lot of indie studios that either do one-offs, or the cream, they're just going to rise to the top. There's going to be a lot more. They're going to carve out their own chunk. Like he does a
Maybe.
lot of like really great puzzle games. You're going to be in that same space. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
as I said that, I was thinking it through because the reality is like Zachtronics is actually a great example of a studio that can probably survive without that will survive no matter what. I
yeah, I
think
don't yeah,
maybe
I
a
don't
better one is most people don't know Tequila Works very well, in spite of the fact that Tequila Works makes a lot of good stuff, right?
what are they making?
Or aren't they the ones that made Gris? Or am I
Oh,
super wrong?
yeah, I don't know. You would know the thing is, the thing that the other part about that too is that you would know their game, but you wouldn't know their name. Like a lot of people don't know that the Proteus guys have a studio called Bounding Box Software, right? Like we haven't really been pushing that. We've just been
Yeah.
pushing the game. Um,
So
reading chat
Sorry.
now.
Yeah, I know. I'm reading chat too. This is gonna
Yeah,
be
my,
it. We should find a way to wrap up the podcast and just talk with the chat because the truth is I don't know how we're gonna cut this into a podcast. So we keep getting distracted, and I don't think I made really good points because I'm actually rethinking what I just said earlier. I don't know where I stand on.
well,
I
yeah, I
like,
mean,
in all seriousness, I'm risk averse and I want a way to avoid risk. And so I'm like, what would be great would be I secretly want Microsoft to take over and lock it down and just be one of the few that are chosen because that just
yeah,
means everything is safe,
right.
And in reality, there probably is no safe path.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think to some degree, I mean, I think you're in a really great spot to not have to worry about that right now. Like maybe in like another 2 years where you're like, I haven't shipped anything in 2 years, and you're like, oh my God, this is the worst.
Yeah.
Maybe then you'll start feeling the sweat. But I feel like right now you're in a really good spot. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. I go,
I don't know. I
we'll see
honestly, like me
where,
personally, I would be more interested to see what a Gwen Frey kind built empire looks like, than
well,
I
I'm telling you,
mean, than the safe route of going, getting the
why
being
do
a
you
part of the
think you
blanket.
can't build that underneath? Do you think you can't build your brand while also feeding content directly into something like Game Pass?
I think the drive is different. As soon as you feel safe, you make different decisions.
Riskier
And
decisions.
what was that?
Riskier decisions.
Maybe, but I think it's all about like I think making the smarter like safe decisions sometimes, but like, oh, we still make risky decisions now. I mean, as an indie, like you sure do. I think you definitely take larger risks, like in
I'm
terms
going
of
to tell
like,
you straight up, I would not have hired a team to work on, well, partly because I didn't have the money, but like if I didn't
right.
have that, if Epic didn't step in and just say, we will pay for you to make the thing you want to make, I would not have made it. Because I
You
don't,
wouldn't have made Kind. You wouldn't have finished
I
it.
would have made it, but let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. I would have made Kind, but it would have been made just me. I wouldn't have hired a team. I wouldn't have
Right.
upres the art. I wouldn't have invested as much money. I invested the money because I had the money up front.
Right. I mean, in another universe where you didn't get that and you ended up finishing Kind by yourself,
I still would have
about a
loved
year
it.
later, about a year later, you would have released a Christmas HD remake pack. We're like the art is all like updated, and you'd have like your like snow particles
I'm
falling
gonna
down. The
maybe
characters would have little snow outfits and stuff.
I disagree. I think for me at least, every time I've ever made something, as soon as it's shipped, I'm like, okay, next. Like I've never. I actually don't enjoy sequels so much. That's not true. I really did enjoy the DLC. You know what? I'm wrong. You're right. I enjoyed the DLC for Bioshock Infinite. That was the
Gwen,
one
you're
time.
such a roller coaster.
I know. Well, I didn't. I had to think that through because I'm lying. You're right. Okay. I don't think I would have done an HD remake though. I enjoyed the DLC for Bioshock Infinite because it was like a completely different environment,
It was.
completely different game, really. Right?
Yeah, it was. I remember enjoying working on the we did sort of like a what was the first one, was like a survival mode type thing, and that was a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah. Like the DLCs were just super different, so that was super fun.
Yeah.
And I think I could do something like that. Like I could make Kind 2 or a spiritual successor to Kind, but like reskinning Kind with fucking Christmas hats and shit. No, I wouldn't
No, I meant
enjoy
like
that.
you would I sort of jest in that because of great alien games, or what was it, the guy he talked about being an indie for like 11 years and failing for like 11 years but staying afloat, and one of his key points was re-releasing his games around holidays, or making games like about holidays, because then like they instantly shut up more because people want to play holiday games. So it's sort of a joke, but I think, if you finished Kind and you were unhappy with the art look for it, for example, just because nobody's happy with their own work at the end of the day, but then like you could have at that point paid for additional art with the money you made from the game and then re-release it as like an up-res version, or just like as an update, and then
It's hard to
big
say.
updates get, oh yeah, it's new art, and blah blah blah, and more people will play, want to play it and stuff.
Well, at some point, I mean, at some point, it's hard to know what would happen in that parallel universe, right?
Sure.
I don't know for sure that it would, because you'd have to be able to make an argument that if that the game was very very good and more people would have made it, and more people more people would have played it and more people still will play it if you invest more money. Otherwise you're throwing good money after bad. If you're like, oh, everyone that's already played this, everyone that's super into puzzle games played this already,
Right.
but if you don't believe that having, like, at that point you just have to stop and see if you believe the uprised version will get you new players. Otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? Otherwise
Yeah.
you've already tapped out your market. Plus you've already tapped out that the game exists. It's hard to get pressed the second time around.
I don't know. I'm in like the firm belief camp that there are way too many people out there that haven't seen our games. You know what I mean? Like, there's just
Yeah.
so many. Like, pretty much everybody you meet at PAX is like, I've never heard of your game before. It's like, cool. Well, here we go. And it's like, I don't know.
Yes.
There's like, it's a little humbling. You're like, yeah, we really haven't reached like a huge market yet. Like, it's just one of those things that you just got to keep working at.
And I think the way, perhaps, I would say a better way to capture the market there would be to keep making. I think it's one of the things I like about Zachtronics, and the reason I go back to him is because he does release games at a regular cadence. And
Yeah.
every time he pulls in somebody new, they go back and play his older games.
Yep.
And that's something that I personally like. It takes me a long time to make a game, and I don't want to scale up such that it's shorter or whatever. Like, I think he's very smart in the way that he makes his games.
Yeah. I think somebody in chat suggested
We
that.
hold on. We have to record an ending to the podcast before
Oh
we.
yeah. Okay. Well, Gwen, it was really great hearing about your PAX experience. It sounds like we had sort of similar experiences being completely sick.
Yeah, we both
But
got ill.
overall,
The
yeah, it
sickness
was.
is the common thing.
But it was good. We had a good time. And a lot of people stopped by. It sounds like you have a lot of t-shirts to give away still.
I will figure out what to do with the t-shirts. Hey, thanks for chatting with me, Mojica.
Yeah, it was fun.
This has been Jason Mojica from Proteus and Gwen Frey, and you've been in the Dialogue Box.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, we gotta figure. I have no idea
I'm
how
gonna hit
that.
stop now.
Yeah, me too. I don't know how we're gonna cut that,
No, I don't
like
know
into a
either.
podcast. We
We're kind of
definitely. I
jumping
think
around.
just gotta jump off. Like we'll just lob off the last half. Maybe I can get Chris to do it, even though he wasn't here.
All right, so let's see.
Fine.
So yeah, Tim was saying in chat that he thinks that he's like 99% sure that Zachtronics isn't indie anymore, but maybe that's just the perception of like, I mean, I didn't look it up, but maybe that's just the perception of them doing really well consistently.
I
Maybe
don't
they
know.
haven't. Sure, maybe they're
It's hard
small.
to say because I'm in the bubble now, right? Like you know how there's
Mhm.
different indie bubbles. So like I'm in the indiest indie bubble where everyone
Oh, they're owned by a
like
parent company.
everyone I know they're owned by a parent company. I know they have a publisher. I didn't know if they were owned. But everybody in my bubble
Oh.
knows about their games. I'm not sure if they're actually as popular as I think they are.
Hmm.
I mean, there's popular within your niche, and there's popular within the indie space.
Yeah, there's
And then
definitely.
there's popular, like the one thing I can think about in my niche that became popular, like in the zeitgeist, is probably Baba Is You.
Yeah.
That one fucking went there. That one, like, my brother knows about that. My brother doesn't play indie games.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good example. I mean, it's it'd be interesting to be a part of the zeitgeist, but I don't think that's gonna happen on for a while, like a while. But
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. Does anybody in chat have questions for us while we're still here? Any indie related questions, either about Kine or Proteus or just being indie? Are you indie? Are you looking to go indie? I saw my better half, Mike was in chat, and he never shows up. So
Dude,
he's like,
I have anxiety about putting together this podcast. We talked way too long. We definitely talked about the chat way too much. I was hoping to not have to do any cuts.
that's probably not a big deal. I don't know, when Joe Rogan does his podcast and he's like talking about stuff, it's probably fine.
Gotta cut the
Even if you
part.
talk about chat, because then people will want to like swing by chat. They're like, oh, they do a live thing. Well, I want to be a part of that. Kind of like the Idle Thumbs guys. I think they used to do that
I didn't listen to them
live.
that
Maybe
much. I should get back, yeah.
I think they don't do Idle Thumbs anymore. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I see a lot of people from my Discord in here. How do you take your coffee? Lots of hazelnut. More hazelnut than coffee, and sugar free because I'm worried about getting diabetes.
Well, after PAX, I can't blame you.
Yeah.
If your PAX is
Yeah,
like my PAX.
what was it? So there was a coffee place on the bottom floor that I just kept going back to and getting hot ciders
Oh,
the
yeah?
whole time. It was good for my throat and everything. It,
Yeah.
it just it worked out so great. And then while I was there, you just gotta buy like 2 or 3 cookies. There's like a
I'd,
brownie.
I'd explain at the bar, like, because I always order hot toddies at shows a lot of times to help my voice. And it's summer. So it's summer in Seattle, and I'm ordered a hot toddy, and the people are like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah." Like, do you
Yes.
know? Do you know that's a hot drink? And I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what I'm ordering."
Yeah. Yeah, my wife was like, drink hot stuff all the time. Don't drink anything with like milk or whatever because it's gonna like make your voice a certain way. And I was just like, okay. Like I saw a hot cider on the thing. I was like, gotta get that. And then luckily Steve, my booth mate, brought like a little mini cooler. Like he was just on top of it, which was amazing. And we had like 9 bottles of water in there, and I went through all bottles of water like through the course of one
You
day.
get one and you refill it. Don't destroy the planet, Mojica.
Well, I ended up having to do that, but yeah, no, I felt very wasteful. I usually don't do that, but I was like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah, no,
I
I feel
can't
you.
leave the booth. It's like,
Yeah, you're kind of tethered there. I feel, yeah. trying to think of, like I have a couple of stories from PAX, but
Let me see. I had some things written down over here. Let's see. I mean, we were kind of in a weird spot, but I was going to ask you about your location because you were right there at the T junction
I don't
where
want to. I would
there
argue.
was a huge line right there. Like people waiting in line. They probably saw your game. A lot of people, what
Yeah,
they don't have anything to do standing in line, so they're definitely checking out your game while they're in line, you know what I mean?
and the ones that are near me, yeah, anything they can see. I think uh I think the show went well overall. I mean, this is a puzzle game. It's not going to do as well as some of the other games around. Well, how do I put it? And yes, there was that line. I think my placement was really good. Think I was pretty fortunate because I was on the outside kind of part of the booth space. Like I liked where I was. I think my favorite thing in the Indie Mega booth was probably Superliminal, and I'm glad those guys did so well because
Where were they at?
they were kind of adjacent. Like they did not have a good spot, and in
Hmm.
spite of that, they always had a crowd. They were like across from me and down a bit.
Oh, okay.
That's also an Epic Game Store exclusive, which is
Oh,
something
nice.
you mentioned earlier, and I was like, I was not on the Steam page, and I know why.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, and
That's
I as after I said that, I realized as well. But yeah. No, that was funny though cuz they were running around PAX. Some of the workers were running around being like, "Everyone's on the Steam like front page," and I was like, "Oh, well,
it's like everyone
my game's not out yet."
except for the three or four of us that super definitely aren't. We all compared notes. We're like, we're not on the page, are we? No. Okay, cool.
No, that's
No.
funny.
Oh, it's worth it though. I mean, the other thing I
Yeah.
didn't bring up was Epic Pay. Epic kicked in a couple grand for the booth.
Oh,
Epic
really?
Unreal. This is a known thing. If you Google it, if you get into the Indie Mega booth and you're an Unreal Engine game, Epic will give you a couple grand for your booth.
Well, that's
Like they'll,
nice.
yeah, it
Shit.
was what made it possible for me to do this at all.
Oh man, I was actually pretty jealous of your booth too. I was like, "Oh, you got like little stars with your like Twitter handle on them, and like you had this really awesome purple sheet that was like draped across stuff, and you had like the big ass
Yeah.
TVs and stuff."
Well,
That's
I
good.
was like, how? Well, I wanted something that I could fold up really easily and take with me, and so I just bought
Sure.
purple cloth because you could just put that in a bag, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
right. Yeah, the what was that one thing? You had that vertical, the vertical banner thing. I wanted to
yeah.
get one of those for Proteus when we were at DreamHack, but then I kind of, with like screenshots and stuff on it. But I didn't. But yours looked really great, like because you essentially planned for that. I mean, like the characters were all like really cool looking. I mean,
That
really
would
stood
be,
out.
yeah. Well, I commissioned some art for that. Yes.
Was that not just in game
No,
or
no, no. Of course
it
not.
wasn't?
That
Oh man, I
was
thought it was.
nah, man. No, I paid for that.
It looked really nice. I was a big fan.
Well, you get that key art done and then you reuse it in like different marketing materials and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
What's this guy asking? He says, "What is the ideal result from going to a convention like PAX?"
well, it's a combination of things. You have a good time.
Yeah.
It's a huge morale boost for the team, and if you do it right, you line up a lot of press and you get a lot of press coverage outside of PAX. I think that's the ideal. And
Yeah.
in my case, it was fun to meet the handful of people that were super into puzzle games. It's dropped by and were like there's literally a couple dressed up as Flag and Baba from Baba Is You.
I
Swung by the
saw that.
booth.
That was awesome.
Like that was so amazing. Or you get there was a couple others that came up and they would be like, have you played either? I can divide people who were really into kind into like three people. There's the people who are like, have you played Steven Sausage Roll? It's like, nah, man, never heard of it. Have you played? She's like, yes. Have you played Elo Milo? I was surprised, but there was like a strong contingent that was like, "Oh, this looks like Elo Milo," which
Oh,
is
that's
weird
interesting.
because I'm in
I
like
don't even know what that is. I gotta look that
it
up.
was like a Double Fine game that came out. Oh, well, I think it was published by Double Fine.
Elo
I've heard of it.
Milo.
It's beautiful. I was just surprised at how many people knew about that.
I actually spelled it right on the first time. That's crazy. Wait,
Yeah.
no, I did not. No, that's a streamer. Never mind.
And yeah, what was the other one? And then there was this generic. It was like, this has never been done before. Like you get a couple of those. I
Oh, that's
really, I
cute.
really, really like puzzle games. You ask them to say which ones, and it's like they can't come up with a name. So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
all right.
I saw a couple of people on your Twitter that you said like they had dressed up as like one of the characters or something.
Oh, there was one lady. No, I had skirts that were what do you call it? Like piano skirts.
Piano. Oh, that's cool.
And she bought a piano skirt and a shirt, and she kept coming back to play. And so I
Oh,
got a
that's
photo with
really
her. She was
awesome.
cool. Yeah, well, that was awesome. You get that stuff feels really good. You know,
Yeah, I don't know how people are gonna do that for Proteus. Like,
dressed up as a monster.
there's- yeah, there's no really great way to cosplay for Proteus. Just,
So if you have, I've seen these cosplayers, man. If they like your game, they'll find a way. It's pretty
I think
impressive.
the only thing that we've released about like what the player looks like is just the hands, and we've got like these biker gloves with spikes on them, and like anybody anybody could be doing that. And then also like we have this like Kickstarter only thing called the Excalibur gloves. They're like a gold gauntlet that have like skulls and like flames on them, and I would be like excited to see somebody walk by with like some freaking gauntlets on. I'd be like, oh shit, like let me buy those from you. I want to wear them.
Yeah, that would be
What was
sweet.
it?
I'm trying to think there, and everybody gets excited about this stuff. It's fun hanging out like it's fun hanging out backstage with the people who are working at Stadia, for instance,
Hmm.
and they had like the jacket from like the cyberpunk jacket, and they were all taking turns wearing the cyberpunk
I
jackets and
saw
things like
somebody
that.
wearing that. It said samurai on the back. Is that the one?
I think so, yeah, with like the big spikes and shit.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool.
Or just it's fun. It's fun to have that stuff. It's fun to see all the statues, all these things. Like oh, the Monster Hunter statue is massive, but
Oh,
the
dude.
best thing is these bigger companies. They do these massive statues and things, and get these huge ass TVs for E3 or whatever these big
Yeah.
shows, and then that ends up in their corporate office later. And
I
so
don't see how the Monster Hunter guys are gonna do that. I heard they did another
they'll
one
find a
like
way.
that previously as well, but it was a different monster. And you just like, where do these things go afterwards? Do they just get
Oh, have you ever
destroyed and
like
then
I
like
toured
thrown in a
while I was
grave?
there? I toured Nintendo, like the
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo office, and I got to see their massive statues. They're like, yeah, that one we made that one for E3. We made that one as this or whatever.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
What day did were they doing a big tour, or they just like
I
you just
just yeah, I just
you lucky mother?
the
What day did you do that on? Was that like a
day after PAX. Yeah, I
the
just
day after?
yeah.
Okay. Oh
Uh,
man. Yeah, I just like show up and be like, I'm from Proteus and I want to get a tour of your office,
I
please.
didn't do that. I talked to. I'm shipping on the Switch, so
Yeah,
I
I know,
messaged my
no, no.
the guy that I was like
What was his
my
name?
contact,
Scott. Ken
Kirk.
Scott?
Kirk. Yeah.
Kirk. Yeah, I know. We got our dev kit from him, and he actually stopped by the booth and said hi, and I gave
Yeah.
him our spiel as well, and
He's
he was like,
super. He's a great dude. Yeah.
yeah, he's tall too. Shit.
Yeah,
I
they're all
mean,
they're feel like tall people in this industry. It's weird. Oh, too
why
tall.
did I have to be
Shorten them.
small? Let me
Yeah.
see. So there's a couple of questions. Let's see. What's the result? Okay, so what does success look like for either of your projects?
Hmm.
That's a bit of a tough one to answer, I think, because there's like varying degrees of success that you would like. There's acceptable, and then there's like, oh, I didn't expect it to do that. Like, I don't know. Like you sell a few million copies. You're not expecting to sell a few million copies uh, as an indie dev, but it's like that's the mecca. That's like the
Yeah,
holy grail.
it's kind of like a hierarchy of needs almost, right? Well, not just
Yeah,
needs, but it kind of like the. I think for everybody, the lowest bar is I can keep doing this,
yeah, exactly.
and
It's
then and then
the
after,
I can survive.
so that's easy. Everyone's like I can keep doing this is the lowest bar, and then the next bar is where things as we go higher up in the hierarchy, people change what they really want.
Yeah, I do think that like to some degree, you'd like to be able to like I think you start asking yourself as an indie like okay, so the level up from oh I can keep doing this again and I can keep maybe like getting contractors and things like that. That's the good success, I think, in my opinion. That's like the where you would like to be. But then anything above that is oh shit, do we grow a studio? Do we keep going the way we are?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I don't
also
know.
other opportunities start opening up for you. Generally speaking, like the more well known your company or like you and like your game gets, like the more opportunities start to open up. So there's a lot of things that I mean, it's hard to to quantify all of that in like one sitting,
Yeah.
you know?
I guess maybe it's unusual, but I don't really have I don't have a rank sort list here of like I don't know how to
Mm,
explain it. Like I feel like by now I should have a list of what is the most important thing, what I define as success. When in reality, all I'm thinking about when I sit down and I think about what I do next is like how much money am I going to have and what is it I want to do. And to me, it's never been about building a studio to a certain size. It
yeah,
should be logically like it should be. Here's what I think will succeed in the market. You should build towards this, and I have that in the back of my mind. But in reality, it's just like the question mark of what it is you actually want to make next. To me, it's always about the
yeah,
thing you're making. And
yeah,
I thought everybody was that way, but it's occurring to me that maybe not everybody is. But like, well, and that makes sense. Like, some people are like, I really want to work with these people specifically. They are my friends. I want to make enough money that I can hire my friends, and then we'll
hmm,
figure out what to make. Whereas with me, it's I've never gone to a place for anything other than I really want to make the thing that was being made at that place. You know.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
as soon as I went indie, like I started Kind because I really, really wanted to make Kind. And I'll know what my goals are and what success is once I know what the next thing is that I want to make, you know?
yeah,
And until then, it's like success is whatever lets me make that question mark. And in a way, that's bullshit because you'll mentally scope the next thing to be what, like, I'm not going to want to make Mario because I know that's impossible. I know I won't have the money to make Mario, right?
right.
So, in a way, that's bullshit too. But,
You know what's interesting though? You brought up the point of so when we're in AAA, I think when you're in that space, and it's a small space actually, it's getting smaller every day. But when I was, I think like about 5 or 6 years ago, to get into AAA was you loved their games and you wanted to work on those games,
mm,
and you saw a pedigree, and then a part of me was always driven by a little anxiety of how do I like my favorite game is being made right now and I don't know about it and I want to work on it. How do I get to that point where I know what's being worked on?
yeah.
And that to me was always like sort of like in the back of my head, like, oh, I would have loved to work on Mirror's Edge, for example.
I think
Um,
I'm gonna disagree with you because I think your perspective is coming mostly from being a designer. I think a lot of
it is for sure.
people don't like, especially in the art field. A lot of people are like maybe don't even like the game or don't like games in general. Like, I've worked
Hmm.
with artists that just don't like video games.
Yep.
And that's way more common in a way in AAA and almost necessary in a way because if absolutely everybody has strong opinions about the design of the game, then you're fucked, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, it's very common that I've met that programmers are really excited about a specific technology problem, or
Yeah.
artists are really excited about a specific art problem or an art challenge in AAA. That's very common. Whereas in indie, you never see that.
Yeah. I do
Indie is
think that
unique
like
in that
you are
everybody
correct
likes the
about
game.
the design aspect of it. Like I love interesting designs. I love interesting mechanics. Like your game is very interesting on a lot of levels, and I love digesting that and just it's fun. And there are other games like that that you wish that you could have worked on because that would have been fun to like mess with those mechanics. And to me, that's sort of like my drive. It's like oh man, that would have been so sick to like work on that game and get to like mess with those mechanics or just play like I don't know. There's just some, like a lot of games like so for example when I interviewed at Raven Software a long time ago, I was worried. Like I wasn't really a big fan of working on Marvel games. I didn't want to do that because I just didn't have a big Marvel drive. Um, but when I got there, they showed me their prototype for Singularity a long time ago, and it had like time travel, it had aging things, it had affecting timelines, and I was just like, "Whoa, this is the kind of I really want to be on." And it was just so interesting to me, and I just ate it up, and I was like, this is the thing that I need to work on, and I totally went there. I was like, "Yep, this is gonna be great," and I loved it. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a design driven thing because when you look at a lot of artists, like I guess they're more detached
I
because
wouldn't call it detached. They're exceptionally into the art that they're doing. Like a
yeah,
programmer can be really excited about the tech side of a thing, can be
yes,
really excited about how a thing is done and how to do a thing right. An artist can be really excited about an art style. I would argue
yeah,
to a certain degree, there is a point where the art needs to service the game. And we can get into that more. But like, There's in the realm of tech art, how do you make it? There's a shader and there's a look. How do you make that as efficiently as possible? Is an
Yeah,
interesting challenge to a lot of people. You can just get
yeah,
really into your job, especially in a very large studio where everybody's very specialized. And
yeah. Mike
I have a
Mike is like
question for
that.
you.
Yeah, what's
Like,
up?
have you ever seen a game and you thought this game has awesome mechanics, but if I was in charge, like if I was there, I would have done this with it? Or how do I put it? Do you
Were
ever
you
look at?
like
Oh, I haven't released yet. Afro Studios. It's coming out in a month. Don't congratulate me yet. Don't jinx it. The big thing was I announced I'm coming out in Stadia. That was huge. That was something we haven't really talked about at all. But yeah,
Oh yeah, we probably should have. I think every time you brought that up, I accidentally sideswiped that
it doesn't
discussion.
matter. I don't care.
You could like record like a
I'm
part of
not.
the podcast by yourself and then just like insert it in right
There will
there where you were
be.
supposed
There
to.
will be more than one podcast. No, I don't think there's no agenda for a podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
There's just
yeah.
topics we could cover. But oh shit, you still have kind branding on my Twitch page. I should probably do that. This person is correct. I also haven't updated my website ever. Somebody in my Discord pointed that out. I should probably do that.
I haven't updated our website in a while. Like I could put our 12-minute gameplay footage up there. That would probably be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
My buddy Mike, he just asked me like the dumbest question. He said, "When did you first realize you wanted to be a game designer?" And he's joking because when we were hanging out at Raven, I randomly just started like talking about like because I was so excited and I was in my own headspace. I just started talking about how I got in the industry. And he was in the back seat and he goes, "Nobody asked you, Jay." And it was pretty funny at the time. And now he's asking me that question. He's goading me on like, "Oh yeah, talk about that now." It's like, no, Mike, no, only you get to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. I should just come up with a. How do I put it? Do you get to say every time I get an interview, it's always these same questions. How did you
Hmm.
break into the industry? What have you worked on? I'm like, I don't know. Google it. I've answered this 14 times. It's
Yeah.
like
Well, I mean, does it?
but like, you know what would be interesting? Let's talk about the difference between the Epic Games Store and the Stadia Store, because I'm the only person doing that, right?
That
Like,
sounds
and
like
how
a
those
really
two
good
things.
podcast.
Yeah,
Like,
like,
you should record that. We just record that.
yeah, no, it's whatever.
I need to
It,
save this out really quick before I forget. Go ahead.
sure, yeah. What's the least interesting question you could ask me? I don't know. Probably the one about coffee. I'm just making fun of whoever
Yeah,
said
that was the
that.
same
Oh,
person
let me look
too.
up who that was. Oh
It
shit!
was the same person.
I'm kidding.
Ubit.
Oh, I'm a bitch. I'm sorry. I
It's
love
okay.
you.
It's
I
somebody
love
from
you.
my
I want to go
Discord.
to. I
They'll
want to go to
find
PAX Australia. Actually, I've always wanted to go to
Australia.
Melbourne Game Week. Have you heard of this? It sounds like fun.
No,
I don't know. I've just never been to like
I have a lot of
that's
family over there. I need to
literally
go over
the
there.
other side of the world. I've always kind of wanted to go there just to
They're
chill,
like a day
see.
ahead of us. You know that, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's insane. It's already Tuesday.
What is? Why are they saying F? Did I curse? I'm not supposed to curse.
Oh no, he because you made fun of his question.
Oh.
It's the press F to pay respects. All right, let's
I
see.
don't know you.
D box 3 data.
Oh, thank you. Australia seems cool. I Melbourne Game Week seems cool. Melbourne is always like the scrappy underdogs of game dev, man.
You think?
All of
Yeah.
Australia, like they keep every now and then somebody spins up a studio out there, and then it's just they just get wrecked repeatedly, and they're always trying. They're always struggling. They
Who is
good
it? We
shit
had
comes out of
UK,
there.
we had 2K out there, didn't we? We had a 2K
Yeah,
branch that some of our workers came from as well.
yeah. We closed 2K closed that studio.
Ah, rip. Well, I mean, like a lot of people out there, like one of the guys from the Doom community, his name is Bridgeburner. He lives in Australia and he's a construction worker, but he also just comes home and bangs out these insanely like amazing looking maps in the original Doom, like GZ Doom editor. And I love watching his stuff, but he's always like, it's like dark over here, but it's like 5 in the afternoon the day ahead over there for
Mhm.
him. It's so weird to see that. I bet you it would be a real time, like it would mess with your head. if you were a day ahead and then you came back and then it was
Oh,
the same day again?
we have distributed teams now. That's pretty common.
Wait,
I'll get on that.
how many people do
Like
you have from out of the US?
all of the, well, let me think. So Elmore was in the stream earlier, or in chat earlier. He's the one porting the game to everything: Stadia, PS4, Xbox, Switch. Um,
Who
he's
is it?
bought
Steve?
Steve Elmore. Yeah, he's
Oh,
local in
Elmore. Hey, what's
Boston.
up, Elmore? Yeah, I hang out with him like pretty much every GDC I go to. Me
Yeah,
and him just like sit and drink.
yeah, he's a good person. Like I drink with him every week, just bragging. But like, just
Damn it, Elmore.
just hanging out. But like, he's Boston. But other than that, everybody is distributed. My oh, not true. Mitchell Wong, the musician I met locally.
Okay.
I wanted to support a local musician struggling. It's a game about music. You kind of gotta.
Yeah, it's
But
wonderful.
like, the lead artist I hired to help like on contract and stuff. Basically, everybody I contracted is UK, Eastern Europe, and Australia. Just and I would roll a specialist onto the team. Like this week, I need somebody to do some like key art. This week, I need somebody to help me with the UI. So it would be different people from Surface Digital, but Surface Digital is entirely distributed, and that's why that was the one really unexpected and interesting thing about Stadia was
Hmm.
how useful it is for a distributed team. And
Oh, really?
nobody talks about that, but like
Explain.
I can't ship a Switch dev kit to all the people working on the game. I can
Right.
tell people to look at the game if it's in the cloud. So if you make a change, so like you know how things look different on different consoles? My
Yeah.
artists can't see their work on the consoles. I
Hmm.
see their work on the consoles, except for Stadia. All the artists can see everything we do on Stadia because it's over the internet.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of
Uh,
isn't that isn't that like an interesting like, but it will look different for everybody though, just by definition, because it's like a PC thing, isn't it? I
what
mean,
it, well, the whole point is it's running on a server and it's the video
right.
feed is streamed out, right?
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. No. No. You're right. You're right. Yeah. For some reason, I just yeah blanked on that. Yeah. I mean, does it look different than normal PC stuff? Like if it was running on your own PC, do you find that there's like an actual difference that needs to be
I,
counterbalanced?
I mean, I didn't, but that's, I mean, it is different. I don't know how much this is public.
Okay. Well,
I'm
you don't have to
not.
go into
Well,
it. You don't have
I'm
to go
too
into it.
stupid to like understand it anyway. Something Vulcan. Like there's some rendering shit is different, right?
Right.
Like so, but in my experience, it didn't look any different. But I don't know how much of that is uh, Unreal Epic just kind of made it look good. The other thing is, if you go and look through all the games that are coming out in Stadia, like half of them are using the Unreal Engine at least. So this is one of the only reason I'm on Stadia really is because I'm using the Unreal Engine and they're doing a lot of the work to
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
port the engine over to Stadia. Otherwise, there's no way a solo developer could ever do this, right?
Right. I mean, yeah, I think Unity also kind of does something. I don't know if they do Stadia yet, but
This, well,
yeah, I
yes,
think
that's basically this is an argument for a distributed engine. I think
yeah, for
I
sure.
don't know which games are coming out from Unity on Stadia. I know an alarming number of the projects on Stadia are Unreal Engine projects, though. Like,
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean they're hella on top of it over there, like in terms
yeah,
of just they've got a whole bunch of engineers. They're like they're gonna work with the best. I mean, like you always see them doing like really interesting, innovative stuff with Unreal Engine, like the live. I don't know, they were doing a lot of like live capture stuff that just looks really cool.
I mean,
But anyway,
I'm obviously a fan of Epic. Like, you don't have to convince me.
yeah.
But
Well, I mean, me too. But
to me, it's actually more of an argument for two things. Like, I think working in the cloud is interesting and opens up some doors for distributed teams I didn't consider before.
hmm
And I think this is just another argument that for using a shared engine with a lot of other people because we basically like if I was one person making a game, there was just no way I could get the contacts and get the tech requirements required to be on Stadia, right? But
right.
Stadia doesn't have to work with absolutely everybody. They have to work mostly with Epic to get the lion's share of the work done. And then
Yeah, that
there's
kind of helps a
specifics,
lot.
yeah. And
That
also
alleviates a lot of developer stress.
it does, and it makes it so that like if there's a glitch or something and Stadia needs to do some work to make sure Unreal Engine games work on their platform, they will. If there was a glitch in like Gwen with custom engine needs them to do some work, they're not gonna fucking do that, right?
Probably
So
not.
it's good in that way too, and that you have like a weird kind of collective bargaining.
Yeah, you've got like the mob is hey, we need this feature for our friends.
It's collective
Bust
bargaining.
your knees. Yeah. No, that's actually, I didn't really think about it like that, but that actually that's really great.
Yeah, I didn't think
It
about
makes
it
sense though. I
either
mean,
of
it does
those
make
either.
sense on like a high level that they are working with Epic directly. Because if they're not, then they're gonna be missing out on
Uh,
most of the stuff
I'm sure all
coming
of the
out.
platforms, like if anybody doesn't have trouble getting access to the new hardware, I bet it's Epic for that reason.
Let me see. I'm gonna Google you Unity support for Stadia. Here's what you need to know. Looks like they might
Oh, I'm
do
sure
some
they are too.
stuff.
They'd be ridiculous not to.
Yeah, I'm not gonna dive into that blog just yet. But yeah, no, that's actually really cool. I mean, we also have people kind of like all around the world. There's like a guy in Italy that we have that does characters every once in a while. Our level designer in the UK and stuff like that. Luckily, um, you can just copy paste our game and send it, and we don't have to worry too much about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I
Yeah.
could see that being super useful. Like just being able to like everybody basically has the
Do
same.
you
They're
do
on
you
the
have a
same page.
Perforce server that you give people access to? Or do you actually pass around a
Actually,
build?
Mike just literally yesterday put together a source tree thing that we're gonna be sending to our guys that can like check stuff in now. Before they would just send it to me over like because it's just it's like, oh, here's a model, oh, here's a map, and the maps are like 3 MB or like 5 MB, so it's not a huge deal. um but yeah, I think on question we used Perforce, and I like Perforce, but it's really detailed. And then we use Source Tree, and it's kind of on Proteus we use like a much lighter, with GitHub and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'm super biased towards like I've basically worked the same way for almost 10 years now. And when I think about the before times, like I've used Perforce in combination with Unreal. Before that,
uh
it was just a giant shit show. So I've like
yep.
got this thing in my brain where I'm like, any other plan is terrible.
Right. So
If it's not
because
this, it's Big World and fucking Tortoise SVN where nobody knows how to. There's no GUI and all the artists are fucking up shit all the time.
you know
Like
what I mean, yes, because
everyone's working in different. Like you got one artist working in Blender, one artist working in Max, one artist working in Maya, and you have no idea what's going on. Like I remember the bad times. I'm like, yeah.
Starbreeze used Tortoise SVN.
I mean, if you have a team of people that know what source control is, that's fine.
Nope.
And a lot of that's where it gets bad.
It was bad. We had tons of artists constantly stomping over the levels. Uh, like they didn't realize that they had like people that never used file stuff before. They would like check in over. They would like not realize that they had done something in the level, and then they would save over all of your work that you had just finished. And then there was some kind of error where if they didn't, I know they were constantly not checking in collision things, and it was just breaking the entire engine like all the time. So that
Yeah.
was those were frustrating
I'm trying to
times.
remember. I remember at in the beginning, and this continued until we still had like 30 people at the studio, and this was the process. Back on Unreal Engine 3, in the beginning of Marvel Heroes Online, oh, it was called a different game.
Hmm.
The way back then, in order to compile, how do I put it? Only one person could compile at a time, from what I understand, and we didn't have a build machine or anything like that. And so when it was time to compile, somebody would check out this one .txt file to indicate to everybody else that they weren't allowed to compile. And you were only allowed to compile when you had that checkout token. However, I was a tech artist, and all I needed to do was compile the Unreal script. So I would
Hmm.
have to wait for these freaking programmers to, with their half day long compiles. I would keep trying to ninja. Like I kept trying to cut in line and just be like, I just need this for 5 minutes. Like I would sit there waiting for that stupid damn token so that I could check it out real quick, so I could just compile the Unreal script because that's all I needed. It was the worst.
Oh
That was the
man,
before times. Now
the
we've
before times.
now we've Unreal Engine 4, and I work alone, and none of this matters.
So, what was it like working Irrational? Like in terms of because it was you and Jeremy, right?
Well,
Was it
my team
Jeremy?
was me, Jeremy, and shit, I forgot his name. There was three of us in the tech animation side. By the time I joined, they had the rigs done. We thought we were only a year from launch, a year or two from launch. So the rigs couldn't change, and I had moved over to mostly working in Morpheme. I could go into that. That was terrible.
Oh, Morphine, isn't that the like
The problem was the
live
integration.
capture stuff?
It wasn't live capture. It was just a different way of handling animation states. It was like a different animation tree, animation blending system.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't terrible so much as it was like the standalone software. I'm sure I disagree with a lot of the philosophies, but I see how it could work. But it
Hmm.
was not crafted in a way to work well with Unreal. And so the process, and it had a lot of physical motion in it, so it needed to know your ragdoll. So we would create a ragdoll in Unreal, export that, import that in a Morpheme, compile your Morpheme animation graph, and export that into something that can be digested into Unreal, and then re-import that into Unreal every time you want to make any change. So anytime you want to make any change to the player characters, like anything about their states,
Hmm.
it was a significant hour and a half long process minimum.
That's gross as you
I
know
mean,
what.
and that's but the thing is, before I got there, things were significantly worse. Like, and I'm
Really?
like I could bitch about it now, but like before I got there, I remember Jeremy Carson and I started at the same time. He took on the Max pipeline because the
Yeah.
3ds Max pipeline, anytime they wanted to export a scene, like a scene with multiple characters, it was a day long process. They just didn't have any tech art. They were a studio that spun up very long time ago and never changed their process, never added more artists, but never added any resources to the art pipeline.
Right.
And yeah, I think a lot of their tech was sort of cobbled together. Specifically, the Morpheme and Unreal integration was non-existent. And I could go into how that happened. Like, I know the backstory. Nobody involved is evil. Like, it makes sense how things got from where they were to where they ended up, but
Right.
it was
Were
not
they had
good.
the they were working on I mean it was like the same version of the BioShock original, right? Or did they like update, upgrade?
Well, I mean, Morphine was entirely new, and I know a lot of the things they did were entirely new for Bioshock Infinite. I don't know exactly the specific details. They definitely did upgrade the engine, yes. And I will say, one of the chumps, the background characters, because we
Hmm.
started that from scratch. It was just me and one programmer that was helping me along for some of the to get some certain things exposed in Kismet,
Oh, right.
and to help me out. Like,
You're lucky you had that.
yeah, well, I mean, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have background characters. And if you
Sure.
think about the fact that this is like a game where most of the game was a large, in my opinion, a large chunk of the game and the feel was walking around in those spaces. I don't.
Yep.
When I think about what was good about Bioshock Infinite, please don't be offended. I don't really think of the combat. I think about the story and those the environments, the environmental storytelling.
I do too.
So I'm kind
So
of shocked we didn't put more effort into the background characters. I'm kind of shocked it was like one programmer kind of part time and me. If you think about
yeah.
it, I mean, obviously the art, like the character artists and the
I think a lot of people were
animation.
just worried about at the time. I think a lot of it was Elizabeth and making sure
Oh
Elizabeth
yeah,
was amazing and she had to be amazing. And I think our studio was like one of the first to do this. We
and
did
she
this weird
was,
what was that?
and she was. Are you about to talk about the fucking squad system?
Yeah, I was gonna mention that I don't remember ever seeing a game like until we started doing it where Elizabeth was always trying to stay ahead of you or in front of you and trying to do like interesting things. So she was always like sort of in the player's view because like most games in the past were your character that you were running with would be behind you or something and then you'd be
Well,
worried that they weren't catching up or something.
I think it's a
Um
very, very common thing that people spend. I think it's important to try to do some of these things programmatically.
sure.
And at some point, you hit a place where you're like, I want a certain cinematic experience. We need to script this. And it took us a lot of time to come to terms with the no, we just need to script this. Which is, when you think about it, when Elizabeth finally got good was when we said, okay, the system is now a good fallback, but seriously, she needs to be here. And a level designer set, be here, look at this, be
Right.
here, here's 10 things you can look at, choose one. Like
I
when
remember
you,
that.
rather than, because before, the reason why it took so long was because we were trying to find this magic code that would make,
Yep.
we were trying to make her, you
I
know,
remember it was the beach. It was the beach map that I was working on that we were trying to find a good balance between, like, if the player walks around, that she would just dynamically walk over and start lifting a ball or skipping a rock or whatever. I mean, turns out most people just run through all of that, but some people, like, I think the other crowd, is like, oh, let me see what she does. And there's a
mhm.
whole lot of stuff on the beach for, if you just stand there, she just walks over and starts doing things. And that was a huge undertaking, like trying to
Yeah.
figure out the balances between
I
those
I
things.
think we got it. I think we got it well. Like we did right there. But I think something we needed to lean on a lot sooner was just the idea that it is okay to have a marker and say that Liz will try to be towards this marker rather than trying to figure out based on, the direction that the player is facing and the what was it? Like the nav mesh exactly where Liz should be. I think it's we need to just be a little bit more comfortable doing a lot more handcrafted stuff a lot sooner.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
the brute force approach is like, yeah, I mean, the thing that's interesting is, like, a lot of that kind of had to go late because of the layouts and the art were changing constantly. So
Mm,
anytime, like, if you did it too early, you would have
oh
had to
yeah.
redo all of it anyways, and then there would have been a lot of things that you would have missed. She'd be like clipping through carts and stuff. But yeah, yeah, the brute force approach to that seemed more, you could be a very handcrafty and make her seem more interesting by having her look, like, bend over and look at, like, under a cart or something like that. Like, she's interested in everything. And those little touches, I think, came through in the end.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. I think we got there. I think we would have gotten there sooner if we had were focused more on putting things in game and seeing it in game and playing it, rather than theory and I don't know.
I think I think
You
that
always want to iterate. You always want to do better. I don't think we did anything bad or wrong. I just think we could have done
mm-mm,
it better, faster.
right. I think that we were talking about, you always want to make cool mechanics. As a designer, like the designer part of you wants to work on fun things, and the programmer side of you wants to solve really interesting and difficult problems. And I think, and I can't speak for them, but I would understand them trying that scenario, for a while, trying to get that to work, because it's a really great talking point. Like, we've designed a system. It's sort of the same thing with, when Left 4 Dead came out, and they were like, we have a design director that designs your experience and makes it fun, and it goes up and down. And that was a huge part of their talking points as well. That, like, the experience will always be different, but it'll always be interesting, and it's always gonna be good. Like, pacing is gonna be great,
I
and
need to
blah
start
blah
listening to design talks. I still don't do that. I don't know.
blah.
I don't know why. I should.
That's
All
one of
right,
the things, like, I did.
Mahika, we're gonna
Like, just
talk
going through. Yeah, go
forever.
ahead.
I want lunch. It's 1 o'clock.
Okay, yeah. Let's call it. Yeah, I kind of have to go as well. Uh,
I just know you and me will just do this for hours unless somebody just says, "All right, stop."
Yeah, it's true. No, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Hope to do it again soon.
Yes, we should do this again. Thanks for hanging
We could
out,
do.
everybody that
Yep.
hung out.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Bye. That was such an abrupt ending. Shit, I didn't hit the button. Hold on, wait, let me find the button. Hold on, I forgot. I don't remember how to stream.